started. Well, good morning, or good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you are. And we're at the Slang Vegas podcast. I am very fortunate to have Tim Morse here. Um, Tim, welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm very pleased to be here.
I don't recall when I first heard of your work. I think it might have been when Transformation first came out, which I believe was 2005.
That's correct. Yeah, 20 years ago.
But I had this and I absolutely love it. And I'm not sure if I got it before I got Transformation or after Transformation. But Yes Stories by Tim Morse is a wonderful resource for any Yes fan. And it kind of took me down the rabbit hole of your music with Transformation.
Yeah.
I know I have three on vinyl which came out a few years ago. And then you just released, well, not just, last year you released a brilliant album called, I'm looking it up now,
Soundtrack.
Soundtracks,
Yes.
and back in last November, which I own as well. And I think you've had a number of great solo projects. In fact, my notes say you have 12 releases, 12 solo releases in the book.
Yeah, it's somewhere that it's how you sort of rate, is a Mango's release? I'm counting that as one of mine, that kind of thing. Yeah.
And
So,
then
yes.
also Parallels, which I got a few years ago, which you did a bunch of Yes songs on, which is brilliant, Tim. Brilliant stuff.
Thanks. That was an interesting project. I had been in a Yes tribute band for about 10 years, and at a certain point we were doing PR and we were trying to get, hustle for gigs, right? And we dipped into the recording studio, a friend's studio, and we laid down 5 songs. I think each one was just one take. And I know
Oh
Awaken
wow.
was done, yeah, last second. It was decided to do it. And then our singer left and our guitarist left and whatever. And so these recordings just got forgotten about until I guess it was about 3 years ago. Our bassist said, I've just found something on my hard drive. I think this is really good. And so we listened and we all agreed and to go back and to we had to put vocals on Awaken and redo some guitar, but when we heard it we thought, okay, there is something here. And I
Mhm.
had still have connections with Rick Wakeman and John Anderson, and they were both, Rick especially was effusive about it. He said that's the best Yes cover I've ever heard. And I'm like, wow, my 15-year-old self is jumping up and down right now.
Yeah,
So it was
it
great fun to
really is
do.
brilliant. It is brilliant, but all your albums are really wonderful. And I
Thanks.
think I didn't know what to expect with Transformation Redux. I know it's out
Right.
officially today,
Yep.
but you added a lot of content to it. So tell me, I know it's the 20th anniversary of Transformation.
Yep.
How did it come
Correct.
about?
So the repackaging, the 20th anniversary edition came about because the end of last year, I guess right around the time Soundtracks was released, I was having a conversation with Mark Dean, who had produced Transformation, and we were commenting on the fact that it's almost 20 years, right? You get a little nostalgic and you wax and you have these memories and whatever. And anyway, we agreed pretty quickly that there should be some way to commemorate it, to honor it for ourselves and the people who have enjoyed it. And so he said, I'll take care of the remastering. And I said, okay, well, I'll look into the bonus track situation because I felt pretty confident there was a lot. I didn't know if I'd be able to put my hands on it quickly or not because I just moved like a year and a half before. So I don't know if you've moved recently, but you're like, I knew where that
Mhm.
was in the other place. Anyway, as you're saying, I came up with about an hour's worth of stuff, which I'm sure you've bought a lot of these box sets, and I certainly have, and you want your money's worth. I think it's nice to have the new album and to have it remastered, and sometimes it's a real revelation, but it's fun to have the associated recordings and the live stuff and even the demos, from that era. So it was great fun mining it. I will say the live stuff was its own sort of adventure because we had an album release party, of course, and full band performing the music. And I had, for my very first website, I had clips of those songs, but I didn't know if I even had access to the full length versions or not. And if I did, it was just through this video recording that my friend Andrew had done. And again, I said, okay, well, let's start digging. And within 30 minutes, I found it, the whole thing, top to bottom. And I'm like, well, this is great. And so I'm listening to it and I'm watching the video. And I realize, especially with the first song, Present Moment, the mix is pretty atrocious because, when you play live, oftentimes the house engineer, he's trying to get his mix together. And it's only at the end of the first song that it actually starts to sound. So I thought, wow, this is, I don't, it's not releasable as it is. And I thought, well, let's investigate AI. And I don't know how much you've done with that, but it's extraordinary what can be accomplished now. I just had a master, a stereo master, and I was able to divide it down to all these stems: vocals, guitars, keys, drums. It splits up into kick and snare and everything. And from that point on, I could make a reasonable mix. So it was quite an adventure.
Well, that's great. And thank you for jumping right in there because that was certainly one of the questions I had about how it was captured. I mean, you have added a significant amount. I think it's about 60 minutes of bonus material.
Yeah, it's around 60.
It's-
Yeah.
And the thing I like about the re-release of Transformations is that, yeah, like you said, I have a lot of box sets. But sometimes you're getting a box set where you're getting a remix of a song you already know and you've heard the remix before. I mean, not the 90125 remixes are a good example of that. Well, here you're getting some really significant stuff, including you're getting the live stuff, as you mentioned, the demos, and you mentioned also the associate recordings. Uh, I want to go back to the live piece a little bit.
But yeah.
How was that originally captured when you did your release party? Was it Pro Tools? Was it
Oh, so in that the live recording, as I was saying, it was only captured. It wasn't even done through the board. It was through my friend's video
Oh,
recording.
okay. I'm sorry. All right.
Yeah, so I took it, and then we could investigate it, in our DAWs and all that. But yeah,
Mhm.
it was not a recording that was done, even professionally. It was just a crazy video camera recording that we were able to take and massage and get it to sound pretty good, actually.
And you would not know it was originally video.
Great.
It seems as if, Tim, that you had planned all along to have this and had it in your vault somewhere.
Well, all I can say is thank you to my friend Andrew Glassmacher for having the presence of mind to record it and then give it to me, because we wouldn't be talking about it now had he not.
Yes, I'll probably come back to the live pieces, but I want to talk a little bit um, about the the rough tracks and
Mhm.
also the demos.
Yeah,
How did you back then,
right.
20 years ago,
Yeah.
record your demos?
This is funny. Well, actually, it was even prior to that that Mark and I had met. And so initially, the demo that I gave him, that I went and, in fact, I've got it right here. You can see cassette recording,
Set.
um, cassette, um, that I had one of those Tascam 4 tracks that many musicians had in the 80s and early 90s. And that's what I demoed on. I mean, I could do a little bit of, minor sequencing on I had a Korg M1 and a couple of other keyboards. But it was very primitive, let me tell you. It was
Mhm.
uh it was just about capturing an idea so I could present it to someone else and say, this is what I'm going for.
Wow, they sound great.
Oh, thanks. I mean, again, we have the benefit now of being able to import them into our computers and put, a little reverb and touch them up a bit.
Mhm.
But yeah, I mean, there's plenty of songs like Cloudburst, which I think sounds pretty great. Honestly.
Yeah, yeah, and some of the songs have been released on other projects. For example, Apocalypse Vision Redux 25.
Mhm.
There's a longer version available on the Archaeology project, I believe.
Yeah.
Or is it?
with archaeology, that was sort of a retrospective of my career.
Greatest hits kind of thing,
Yeah,
right?
sort of, yeah. And so actually it was trimmed up a little bit because a friend pointed out to me that the intro is a bit long. We got a little carried away with the sound effects, and I'm sure for some people it's fine, and that's the way, it's left originally as it was once done on the album. But but I thought if I have a chance to redo it, let's trim that up. And then with the 25 version, I thought again, well, there's a few that, most of the songs I'm very pleased with and I'm not touching, but if I could do a few, just bring down this organ part a little bit and, maybe touch up that vocal over here, just,
Mhm.
minor things that that made it better for me as a listening experience. So I normally hate those kinds of revisions. I mean, I'm a huge Kate Bush fan, and when she did director's cut, I'm shaking my head going, "No, honey, this is terrible. You should have left these alone. The, all the original versions are better, like the George Lucas thing too, right? No, 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 don't touch those movies. They're great." But I offer both versions, so nobody has to listen to the new version if they don't like it. They have the option.
Well, the thing is, I love the new version, but I had to go back and dig up the archaeology project and listen to the old version again,
Right.
and it's different, but
Yeah.
they're both great. And
Thank you.
um, I just I can't imagine as an artist when you have something which is so well baked in the first place, it might be more difficult to go back and fix it. But you're the artist, so you know what you wanted original, your vision.
Yeah, or upon reflection, taste change. I have to say again, a lot of most of the album I listen to, and I'm far enough away from it that I can listen to it
Yeah.
and go,
Mhm.
that's good work. It's solid, and listen to Rich's voice on that. Sounds incredible. Things like that. But then yeah, there's little, not big things, but little things that bug you a little bit, like the new version of Temptation.
Okay.
The violinist, actually, he's technically a fiddler. He um, he came out, and Mark was really keen to have him play on my session, and I was fine with it. And it did sort of lend its kind of a little of a Dixie Dregs kind of flavor to it. But there's a couple of pseudo classical moments that happen, and he wasn't really up to it. He couldn't quite deliver that. And I heard it and I thought, okay, it's good enough. And nobody I know of complained about it, but I said when I had the opportunity, let's address that. I mean, his solos are great. I'm not, touching that, but those other bits, So anyway, it's not much. It's a very small list.
So he wasn't Mark O'Connor for you.
No,
Um,
I had David Ragsdale on Face Science, and he could have pulled off anything. That guy's extraordinary.
oh wow. Who was a violinist? Because I don't have that in my notes. Oh, Scott Joss.
Scott
Is that
Joss,
it?
yeah, he's
Yeah.
played with major stars, Dwight Yoakam and Merle Haggard, and he's actually in the Fiddler Hall of Fame. So, I mean, in that arena, he's among the best that you can get.
Wow. Um, is this coming out on vinyl?
It is not. I mean, well, I'm open to the possibility. Let me say that there has to be interest and demand. And
Mhm.
so I mean, if it could happen, that would be wonderful. I mean, I'm a big fan. I'd love to have the gatefold and the whole thing. Um, so we'll see. I'm open to that possibility. I've done it in the past. I
Mhm.
don't have a plan for it at the moment.
Okay. And I guess I need to know, am I getting a new T-shirt too? Because the artwork is a little bit different. So
The artwork is a little different. I love that you have it and you're wearing it. That warms my heart. I will let you know if there's going to be a t-shirt. It is quite a striking design. I think Jay Leak did a wonderful job on the new cover. It's quite
absolutely.
it's quite lovely. Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely one you want to order on CD, so you at least get the artwork that way. And then if vinyl comes out in a few months, great. But if not, you have the physical CD. You also have the download available via Bandcamp at your Tim Morse site. So fantastic. So
Amen. Thank
let
you.
me go back a little bit
Yeah.
and ask: has your compositional style changed since you did this 20 more than 20 years ago?
Yeah. Oh yeah. And with certain songs, they're linear. They're they were created even before that. At the first probably the first inklings of any of the stuff on transformation, I got a mini moog when I guess I was 16 or 17. I saved up my money over the summer and I got a mini moog synthesizer and I was just in heaven. And I wrote this little riff and it ended up being in the middle the solo section of Present Moment. And then my first year of no second year of college, I wrote basically the remainder of it, and we did it. I was in a band. We played it as sort of a fusiony piece, and then when it came around to meet Mark, it was one of the very first things I played for him. But getting to your question, I think initially I was more interested in instrumental music, and so vocal music was something I was exploring, but it wasn't
Mhm.
necessarily a passion of mine. I think I saw something. I think it was Gail Zappa had said about Frank, and she said he only wanted to do instrumental music. The only reason he did vocal music was because it was required of him. But um, but once I was led to that water, I really started to enjoy creating vocal melodies and thinking about the lyrics and all of that, and also starting to hone down the message a little bit. So if you look at the arc of my my recording career, it starts, let's say, Apocalyptic Visions. I think that's one of the most successful songs on Transformation. Personally, to me as a writer, I think it fits
Mhm.
together very nicely. The way the verses work with the bridge and the chorus and all that. And then you jump to Space Science, and probably the strongest work on that is Voyager, and that's a 10-minute piece. So, we're starting to consolidate this vision a little bit to three, where it's Mary Celeste, and now it's about 5 minutes. And I'm feeling like, I'm really capturing this emotion and the gist of what I'm trying to express in a more compact package. And then you get to soundtracks and it's Blueberry Way. So now
Mhm.
down to so the next album, it's going to be a minute and a half. That's the song. um I think I've become a much better pop songwriter, and being able to deliver a message. Let's say again with Blueberry Way, it's about joyfulness. It's about the joyfulness of being a child and experiencing life. That I think I was able to capture that, and I got a lot of reaction, great feedback. So I'd say I guess it's okay. I learned that it's okay to lay back a little bit, and it doesn't. I mean, one of the reviews of Transformation, I think it was an expose, said, those guys should take their foot off the gas pedal sometime, because it is pretty intense and wall to wall. I get it. So now I take the foot off the gas occasionally.
Wow, that's well, but your first album too. I mean, that's understandable that you want it to be the way you want it to be. You want it to have an impact, and it certainly does. Before I go on, behind you is that a Moog?
It is indeed.
Yeah.
It's a remote
That's a
synthesizer. Yeah, it's not my original Moog because, of course, at some point I had one of those horrible musician stories where I needed the money and I sold it and whatever. So I went through a phase, I don't know how many years ago it was now, 15 years ago or something like that, where I thought I gotta have that. And so I was able to find one on eBay and paid a little bit of money for it. But yeah, that's an original a 70s era analog mini Moog synth.
because most went out of fashion and came back. I guess our DX7 was ever going to come
Right.
back.
All the world was sort of brainwashed that that was going to be the sound. That yeah, in that same era that you're talking about, when everything was digital and everybody was about the clean sort of percussive sounds. I have a Prophet 600
Oh,
that I got for like a couple $100, 200 or 300 bucks, and now it goes for crazy money.
oh, amazing. So, in terms of how you wrote back then, what tools did you use? Did you use pen and paper? Did you chart everything out? Because it wasn't, I guess there were computers, but
Yeah, it wasn't. It was just a little before, computer. I mean, there were, I ended up getting Cakewalk shortly after Transformation came out, but yeah. So it's a good question actually. I think for a lot of the time, It was a combination of things. All right. I mean, if I felt it was really good, I would remember it. And so that still kind of holds true. You know, if I have something that I think is really good, it'll be there. But I do write it down too. I'll score it sometimes, especially if it's particularly complex. Um, or I may tape it. Nowadays, I'll just grab the phone and hit record and play what I'm
Mhm.
playing. So it's a combination of things. It's not necessarily one thing at all. When you know, you have certain musicians come in, you have to score it out for them, or at least create a chart, that kind of thing. So any number of ways.
Mhm. And now you're doing the same thing, pretty much you're writing it out or you're scoring it or you're
Again, it depends on the
doing
purpose.
demos.
Yeah. Yeah. With boy, yeah, it just depends. I do all of them. I guess probably more nowadays. I just record them because it's quick and easy. But again, if it's something that's more complex, I will score it out. It just depends.
Mhm. And uh, in terms of compositions, what is your main tool? Do you use, because you're a multi-instrumentalist, do you use piano, guitar,
Right.
Pro
Yeah.
Tools,
Sorry, what was the last one?
Pro Tools, and just move things
Yeah, yeah.
around? And
It's all a combination of things. Um, Primarily piano or keyboard, but I have a guitar at the ready downstairs in my living room all the time. So you know, either thing brings out a different side of my playing, a different aspect of composition. So I like having them both at my disposal. Um, but yeah, I mean, for me personally, almost always composition is coming out of improvisation.
oh,
So
okay.
I'll be playing, and then you know a chord shape will grab me, or a rhythm or a melody or something, and there's that sort of aha moment, and you feel like, oh, this is going somewhere. Like with Blueberry Way, I had that initial, I wrote that on guitar, um, that initial riff, and I was playing and I was like, oh, it's got a nice vibe, that's got a nice feel, and what's the next chord? And I played it, and I said, oh, it's going to be 60s. Immediately the direction of the song had revealed itself just by the second chord, and it really came together quickly. So um but primarily piano and guitar, and depending on, I mean, I might play like a percussive pattern or something like that, and that might inspire me to play another way. Yeah.
So you got a pretty stellar band for transformation, and you know that there were some things that you really did in sort of using traditional AI recording for the re-release of Transformation.
I'm sorry, it started to glitch pretty bad there. I heard I had a good band for Transformation, and then the second part of it got lost.
Did you do any additional re-recording when you were working for Transformation 20th anniversary?
Not on the
Did you?
original album, no, nothing like that. We didn't. There was no additional recordings or touching of it. Just it was remastered. That was it.
Okay. How do you go about handling the vocal arranging? Because uh, the vocals are really strong in the original. And I know that you sang some, you had Bert Morris doing spoken words, Jennifer Price doing spoken words, Amy Romness and a female chorus, and of course, Rich Zeller on lead vocals.
Right. Um, yeah, it was definitely the combination of Mark and myself working together on in that way. There's actually not a lot of harmony and big harmony vocals. There are certain exceptions, like in Present Moment, Mark recorded himself, I think, 28 times to make the Mark Dean Tabernacle Choir. um, you know, that big sort of Queen, you know, stratospheric vocal thing. Yeah, we had a bit of that. Um, but like for instance, when Amy came in, we knew we needed a vocal, you know, sort of a female choir, and
Mhm.
Mark and I picked out the notes when she was there. You know, this is what we're going to do. So it was done kind of, right in that moment, fairly spontaneously. Uh, but yeah, it was definitely a combination of Mark and I working together primarily, um, to make that happen. Rich, he was a good sport. I'll put it that way. He came in, and it was really very close to the. I mean, we basically recorded everything else, and we did not have the tenor lead singer that we needed to pull off the rest of it. And thank God, a friend of a friend recommended Rich, and he came in, and we're like, oh, this is the guy. And so Mark was, very about um, the the notes, the pitch and the rhythm, because it has to be like that for it to work in that music. But I was listening for the emotional content and the continuity of that. So between us, I think we were fairly Steely Danish, and he was a good sport to to hang in there and do as well as he did.
He had to watch the videos of Michael McDonald recording Peg over and over again.
He'd be sympathetic.
Yeah, but I mean, all the vocals are fantastic, and of course, the arrangements and keyboards are challenging and interesting. May I ask you about a few of the songs?
Absolutely.
Can I start with Sacred Skies? What do you
Oh
remember
yeah.
about that?
Okay, so that was one of the moments. Okay, so Transformation was basically done and finished, and Mark and I were doing some recordings. He had a guitar student, and they were exploring playing in different modes, that kind of thing. And Mark said, "I'd like to make some backing tracks. Why don't you come out?" And so we laid down, I think, three in a day or something like that. And I had this idea, based on chordal harmonies. Um, if you strip it down to its original intent, it was almost kind of a weather report song, in its original rhythm. It was more of a shuffle kind of feel. And I said, "Well, I've got this thing, I think this could work." And so I played it for him. He's like, "Yep." And I'm sure it was his idea to put it in 10. So, we had that aspect. And he wrote his bass part against what I was doing, and it existed only as a backing track with the drums, the bass, and the keys, so that this person could play guitar to it. And when we were looking for bonus tracks, this song came up, and funnily enough, it was originally, I called it Mr. Mister because it had kind of a Mr. Mister flavor to it. That was my scratch title for it. But Mark called it, oh, what did he say? B movie love scene.
Which is a little bit different than Mr. Mister.
Yeah, but if you think about 80s kind of, movies with their whatever, so it had a little bit of both of those flavors. And but we couldn't release it as is because it was missing the solos, the melodies. And so Mark, he was really good about getting the remaster done and doing work on this particular song within the time frame that we needed. But he kind of pushed it up to where he's like giving me a couple days to do my bit, and then he's going to master it. So I had to like buckle down and come up with my parts. And um, and I thought, you know what, this is really good. I mean, initially we were just going to use a piece of it, but we ended up using basically the whole thing. And so when it was done, I thought, well, we can't call it Mr. Mister, we've got to come up with something better than that. And I was at a museum with some friends, and there was a piece called, I think, "The Sand, the Beach, and Skies." And I was like, "Ooh, that's like I can make a alliteration here and make it work." And and so it all came together. That's the story of that song.
Yeah, absolutely love it. It sounds really good.
Mm.
Let me move on to one of the demos, Hall and
Mhm.
Oates.
I'm glad I got that down before you, because okay, there's a silly title. So the song "Apocalyptic Visions," when I initially was working with Mark, was one of the some songs were very well defined and some songs not so well defined.
Mhm.
The intro to Apocalyptic, I had, but when it came to where the vocal was going to need to come in and whatever, that was still not quite figured out. And so I had this idea that I really liked rhythmically and harmonically, and I played it for Mark. And he didn't reject many cues in the time that we were together, but he shook his head. He goes, "Two Hall and Oates." And I first of all, that's such a great line from him. But I thought, I really like this piece. How can I make it palatable for him? What could I do to make it a little less Hall and Oates? And so what I did is I changed it from major to minor, and
Oh,
that worked the trick. He's like, "Yeah, I love it. This works for me now," and I could use the rest of it. So that piece ended up becoming the main riff, the verse, the middle eight, and the chorus of Apocalyptic Visions. But
oh, wonderful.
a little interesting birth story.
Great. I'm gonna jump to the 20, I guess it's the last track, the last wave,
Yeah,
last bonus track.
yeah. So that's actually on Faith Science.
Okay.
And I thought, well, this is an associated recording because Mark and I had worked so closely together to create Transformation. And then from that point, really there was, I mean, although he and I have been sounding boards for each other and worked together in certain ways, we didn't work in that same, way where, I had this piece of music and he played the drums and the guitars and whatever, except for the last wave. And so it felt like it was good to have that one. That the genesis on that song is I had a lot of bits. I don't know if you're a Kansas fan, but the song Left Overture, Kerry Livgren talked about, sort of being, he had all of these riffs that he had combined, to put, got these little bits, that I can just squish them together and, make this like 10-minute instrumental piece. And I thought, well, yeah, or La Via Strangiano too, those kinds of sort of crazy
Mhm.
instrumental things. I thought I'd like to do one, let's have one of those. And so Mark and I had great fun putting that one together. It was quite an adventure, but yeah, that's how it came together.
Yeah, it's a wonderful epic.
Thanks.
Yeah. So I'll jump to the present moment, the live version bonus track, which I think is also an archaeology project.
It's a bonus cut on archaeology. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry, you want to know about the writing of present moment or
The version you have, yeah, the writing and the new version that you have on the
okay.
live, it's a live version.
Okay.
So
Yeah, there's live version. Yeah. So I told you a little bit about the writing of present moment.
mhm,
So when we were going to do the recording, or we were going to play for the release party, and we were looking at the different material, present moment and apocalyptic visions jumped right up to the front of the pack. I thought I really want to do those, and adrift as well. Um, and the thing is, what blows me away is, and I'm trying not to pump up myself about it or whatever, but I was in Parallels at that time, and they were going to be the backing band. We would have Rich and Mark guest, and we did not have very much rehearsal to pull it together. I think no more than 3 rehearsals to pull all of that music together. And when I look back at it, I'm like, dang, that bravo. I mean, all of those guys, especially Jim Hefter, who played the drums and he had to cop Mark's drum parts. That's a big job. That's
mhm.
tough. So we did it in a very short period of time. And looking back when I was able to put the stems together and listen, I'm like, dang, these guys were on fire,
Yeah.
and you can hear it. It's really fun. So it was the first song we played that night. The curtains, we had the theme music or whatever, the intro music, curtains open, and we went into to present moment, and and it was just one of those things where, this is a big moment. I've been waiting for this for a long time. And so I leaned over just as it was about to happen and I kissed Mark on the cheek. just just to do it, and and we were, had a laugh as the thing is starting to happen, and the music kicks in and whatever. And I remember that because you've got that excitement, this is a big deal, and it's a crowd that's it's your family and your friends and your fans and whatever. There's like this big loving. And when we got to the solo section, I I remember because usually I try to play, tastefully and from the heart. I'm trying to channel, what I'm feeling. But that in that moment, I was just playing like flat out, like as fast as I could. and, and it was, I mean, I knew it at the time. I'm just like, this is out of control. and and uh and I just thought, well, it's not, I can't do anything about it now. We're going on this ride. And so the song, finishes and whatever, and it's big uh response from the crowd. And so later, when I was working with the engineer and producer that I work with here to finalize all that music, his name is Craig Long, and he's also a very talented musician, great keyboardist and vocalist. Um, and anyway, I played it for him. Was like, I feel like I should reshoot the solo. That maybe I should redo it. And he goes, "Do not touch that solo. You leave that alone. That's great. It's exactly in the moment. It's perfect the way it is. Don't touch it." And so I listened to Craig. Anyway, to me, listening to it, as much as I enjoy the studio version of that song, and it's an important song for me. Um, I'll give you a little sidebar. I had an opportunity to spend an afternoon with Steve Howe. I have friends in Canada who are very close to Steve, and when they were recording The Ladder, he came to their home for lunch, and I happened to be there. I was visiting at that time, so it was just the three of us hanging with Steve, which is so great. And had this wonderful meal. And Steve had brought music, his homebrew stuff, and he was playing that. And there was an opportunity for me to play present moment for my hero, which is it's pretty heady stuff. And he listened, and I remember he was really actively listening, like he had his eyes closed and he was taking it in. And then he had good notes, and he we talked about the vocalist and whatever. So I mean, there's all this stuff about present moment. But what I'm getting to is, as much as I love the studio version, I almost love the live version better. It's just got like this, I don't know, this organic quality to it. I especially Rich's vocal, it blows me away. Just extraordinary how well that guy sings. Incredible.
It is fantastic, Tim. Could you remind me of a live band that you used 20 years ago?
Sorry, live band. What?
The live band that you use for these tracks, the live tracks?
Yeah, yeah. It was Parallels.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah,
So,
it was a version of Parallels. So we
mhm.
played with Rich and with Mark, and then Parallels did another. We did our own set that night as well after that initial set.
Okay. So if I could ask about one more song,
Oh yeah.
and it's kind of obvious to a lot of people, I guess.
Hmm.
Dance on a Volcano, the Genesis cover.
Yeah. So with Parallels, initially it wasn't just a Yes tribute band, and so we did play other music. We used to do a really rockin' version of Kashmir, in fact, that I'll probably put out at some point. But but there weren't many songs in the set that I sang, and this was one of the few. Uh, and and it didn't actually get performed all that many times either. So this was a song from that era, and I know it was my suggestion. I loved it, and I think all Genesis fans are big fans of Dance on a Volcano. But our singer at that time was a woman. Her name is Judy, and she said it's not in my range. I can't do it. And I said, well, okay, I'll sing it. And and so again, it was one of those things where Jay Leake, who played bass for Parallels, he said, "Yeah, I've got this thing," and he played it for me, and I thought, sounds pretty good. It's got that energy, right? It's got I don't know, when you think about how important that song is for Genesis, right? Here they've lost their lead singer and their sort of visual focal point of their band, and people are immediately, of course, writing them off because why would you think that they could do anything without Peter Gabriel? And of course they wrote the greatest album of their lives, and and I don't want to say they were smug about it, but they must have been confident, with it going out like, yeah, we did it. And the very first song, because you got to come out, with guns blazing, is Dance on a Volcano.
Mhm.
So it's such an important song for Genesis, and I think for prog fans, and it was so much fun to sing it. I really enjoyed digging in singing those words and those melodies.
Yeah, a wonderful version, and the whole album is fantastic.
Mhm.
I did not ask about a lot of songs. Is there something particular from Transformation 20th Anniversary Edition that you want to discuss that I haven't asked about?
That's well, that's a good question. Um, you've hit on a lot of good stuff, I have to say. I mean, personally, a lot of the things that I probably would want to, to say to mention. Okay, well, let me just briefly say a little something about just the creation of the album, because it's a window in time, right? It's something that could never happen again. I don't think so. I mean, well, for a lot of reasons, it couldn't happen with Mark and I in that way again, because he lives in Pennsylvania for one. So he he had a recording studio. Okay, well, let me back up a little further. I don't know how much, but I'll share. I'll try to make this the reasonably quick version.
Share what you want to
Okay.
share.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, so Mark and I met actually indirectly through Patrick Moraz. So yeah, Patrick was doing his solo piano tour in the mid '90s, Coming Home America tour or something like that, whatever it was. Where if you had his fee and you had a nice instrument, you could book Patrick to play in your living room or wherever, churches and that kind of thing. And so a buddy of mine in the Bay Area and I pooled our resources and we booked a show with Patrick in the North Bay and invited guests. I can't remember what they, whatever they paid, $50 a head or whatever it was, to have this intimate experience with Patrick. And he was wonderful, of course, extraordinary musician and just he's quite a character too. Have you met Patrick? Okay. Yeah, wonderful guy. So anyway, he played like crazy for, about an hour or so, and then he was going to take a break. All right. He took his break, and I sat down at the piano, and it's one of those things where you look back at afterwards, you're like, man, I must have had some pretty big balls to sit down at the piano after Patrick Moraz had played. I don't know what actually possessed me to do that. But I did, and it's fortunate that I did do that because after I had played for X amount of time, I decided I was going to go and find Patrick. What I didn't know was that his invited guest was Mike Varney from Magna Carta Records. And Magna Carta was a part of that progressive resurgence in the early mid 90s. And so I'm chatting with them, and Mike said some nice things about my playing, and he asked me where I was from and whatever. And I told him, and he said, "Oh, I know someone that lives, 40 minutes, an hour from you, whatever. And he's moved out in the middle of nowhere and he has a studio, great musician. I should really put you guys in touch with each other." And Mike is one of those people that he is about trying to find, people to work together and pair them together and whatever. And it was Mark Dean. And I was like, well, okay, great. And so we were put in touch, with the idea that maybe we would be initially recording a demo for Mike. Um, and so I came out, we had this discussion, I played him my demo tape, and we hit it off right away. And he saw the potential in the music. And so we rolled up our sleeves and we were going to do Present Moment and to set sail for for the demo. And unfortunately, Mike passed on it because he didn't like our singer. That's one of the things I was talking to Steve Howe about, was because we had someone sort of called in last second who could sing it, but was he right? I don't know. Anyway, so everything got kind of put on hold for a little bit, and eventually Mark and I decided to do this project on our own, and then became like this mission. It was not just simply recording an album. This was a way of life.
Mhm.
And we lived it for a year easily, where I would work my day job, and then I would get in my car and drive around dinner time to where Mark lived, and it was about an hour away. And he kept vampire hours in those days. So he would just sort of be rising, and we would go and record all night or mix or whatever we were doing, writing, arranging, and maybe take a frisbee break with his son around sundown, and then I would drive home around 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, get whatever sleep I could get, and get up the next day and do it all again. I know this is a young man's thing. It's not recommended now, but it's just so much, I don't know, intensity and passion and camaraderie that's invested in that album. To me, it's more than a listening experience. And I'll just give you one other example that I mean, Mark was so good about. I mean, he's such an amazing producer. He's got incredible ears, and he can really, he has vision and he can hear things. And there were so many times where he said, "Oh, let's try this," and I'd be shaking my head, going, "That's not going to work," and then it worked, like always. So you start to learn to trust him, but but he was so receptive and keen to, like, I was driving home one night and I was thinking about the song Shatter. I'm sure we had been working on it, recording it. I thought it needs a Gregorian chant. Like, I heard the heavenly, like, oh, yeah, we should have a Gregorian chant. And so I found a professor who could translate all the stuff into Latin for us, and read it
Oh.
phonetically. And then we did this thing, and Mark wasn't batting an eyelash. He's like, yeah, we should do a Gregorian chant. So there you go. It was its own great, wonderful adventure, and I remember those times so fondly. And it's so nice to be able to honor and commemorate the music now.
Tim, I loved Transformation when it came out. When I got it, I didn't get it 20 years ago. But I probably got it 5 or 6 years ago, but loved it then. And Transformation 20th Anniversary Edition adds on to an already great album. Really, really enjoy it. I urge everybody to go to Bandcamp, look for Tim Morse. The catalog is great anyway, and there's some great stuff there. And buy the CD, get a T-shirt, and
Ah, ah.
if it comes out on vinyl, I'm getting it, Tim. So
All right.
I'll be in line for it.
I will let you
Anything
know,
else you
Preston.
want to add?
No, just that, thank you so much for your time. It's been a great pleasure. And thank you to anyone who's listening. Yeah, please go ahead and check out the stuff on Bandcamp.
And I know you're working on some stuff right now, right? Some new solo stuff.
Yeah, there's
Can you
always,
talk about it?
I can, the thing is, it can be changing, right? At the moment,
Right,
the
right,
main
right.
project I'm working on is it's kind of an electronic music thing in the, sort of classic Tangerine Dream, Larry Fast synergy kind of mold. Um, I had a little taste of doing some of that stuff on soundtracks, and I thought I'd like to explore that more. So that's where I'm leaning right now. It might come out completely different. I don't know. But the other thing that happened just recently was I've been in touch with Brett Bingham of the Mangoes, and uh, and he said, "Why don't you come over? Let's have a songwriting session." And I said, "Well, yeah, okay." And and so we got the workings of 5 songs, just from that initial session, and so something may come of that as well. But I'm hopeful that next year this electronic music, whatever it is, will be out and available.
Oh, great. Well, in the meantime, we have Transformation's 20th anniversary. Tim, I really appreciate your time. Really enjoy your music, and I love the new version of Transformation. It's just wonderful. Thanks for your time.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. Have a good one.
Great. Take care. I'm gonna
Thank
turn
you.
this off now then. There we go.